Blog Talk Radio.
We'll never see you again.
I dearly hope so, my prince. There is so much more I have to tell you. Everything you know is about to change.
American Daily Review.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance.
When America needed them most, two men rose to the occasion. Doug Gibbs of Constitution Radio and PoliticalPistachio.com. Jasnius of PoliticalPistachio.com, Constitution Radio, and the Hard Starboard Radio Network. This is American Daily Review on blogtalkradio.com.
You've got to be kidding me. You're it? You're black plastic!
No, Jasmius.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game! It's all about the game, and how you play it, all about control. And if you can take it, all about your stay. And if you can play it, it's all about pain. Who's gonna make it? I am the game, you don't wanna play me. I am control, no way you can shake me. I am heavy debt, no way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me. Look over your shoulder, ready to run like a Cleveland bitch from a smoking gun. I am the game, and I make the rules to move on.
Beware, NFL. All those other 31 teams, look over your shoulders. As nobody seized control of the NFC, and now the champs are back. At just the right time, too. Just ask Colin Kaepernick and the literally shell-shocked Jim Harbaugh and the rest of the San Francisco 40 whiners who were held to their lowest yardage total in Jim Harbaugh's tenure as 49ers head coach. But that's a topic for another day. There's still lots of games to go. Not even in December yet officially, but just we're getting hot at the right time, and nobody ran away with it. Nobody ran away with the AFC or the NFC West. Nobody ran away with the NFC period. So let's just see what'll happen, especially a week from Sunday at the Link in Philadelphia. But like I say, that's a topic for another day. We got a lot of things to do here on the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, beginning right here at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review with American Daily Review, a production of the Hard Starboard Radio Network, airing Saturdays 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. For the next 3 hours on two different venues, 2 hours here and 1 hour over on KCAAradio.com globally, KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.3 locally, in the Southern California Inland Empire area, where I'm going to bet that there's not snow on the ground like there is here, looking out my blogcasting studio window. And, of course, originating from San Bernardino and Loma Linda, California, for, of course, Constitution Radio with this man.
I am Douglas B. Gibbs, and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Perhaps today is a good day.
Douglas B. Gibbs.
He's the one.
finished setting the table. Guest call-in number 646-595-4520. Yes, that's 646-595-4520. My email address, jazzmusic@comcast.net, and the chat room is open, and we are off and running.
I have a question before we get started on these stories. I'm curious about your contract with the Seattle Seahawks. What position are you playing?
Hopefully, one that will pay me a lot of money someday.
Yeah, because you're always saying we this and we that when you talk about them. So surely that means you're on the field, right?
Well, everybody in the Seahawk organization, down to the janitor, got actual Super Bowl rings after last season. So that would be a great organization to work for, I think.
I guess so. Okay. Well, all I know is my Raiders won their first season of the year, and last time they played, and the Arkansas Razorbacks, which I'm also a fan of, played a damn good game against Missouri yesterday, but lost it there at the end. And that was after shutting out LSU and shutting out who was the other team? They shut out two teams, LSU and I can't remember who it was before that. But anyway, so all the sportscasters are saying when it comes to Arkansas Razorbacks, 2015 team is going to be definitely a force to be beckoned with. But anyway, that all said, we've got 11 stories to go through, and I think we should start now.
Yeah, in fact, there were like twice as many, and then you whittled them down. Makes me wonder what makes me wonder what the listeners are going to be missing out on.
Well, a lot of them were, I felt, important. I mean, one of them is about one of them that's coming to mind right now that I cut out we were going to talk about, and I decided to cut it out, was a Bollywood star sentenced to 26 years for blasphemy in India, Pakistan area.
They let them live. That's interesting.
Yeah, you got and earthquakes and volcanoes and that kind of stuff. Yeah, which are all important stories, but number one, we only have so much time, and number two, really the Constitution is supposed to be the centerpiece of this radio program. So the minor stories, and when I say minor stories, there really isn't such things, but compared to the ObamaCare, immigration, gunmen, Ferguson, Thanksgiving stories, aside from those, the other stories really have a tie to the Constitution one way or another.
Yeah, in other words, the minor stories that were literally earth-shaking. But we got to stick to the stories that are metaphorically earth-shaking.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Story number 11. It's interesting because we both had something to say about this particular subject, but for different reasons. Well, actually, I think both of these were your stories. I've been talking a lot about this stuff. In Common Core, story number 11, Common Core's effect on homeschooling. And, my brother was homeschooled for his junior high and part of his high school years. And it was better for him. When he went back to public school, he was like 2 years ahead of everybody. Now, Common Core is designed to allow the government to insert ideology into your brain, and then that way they can say, it's okay, your generation will pass away. The new generation stands in our camp. It's fascinating. And before we get into this, have you seen the movie Interstellar yet?
I have no plans to see it, but I've read the synopsis. I've seen the promos, and yeah, it's basically an updated version of a TV miniseries that they showed back in the 90s called Earth 2. It was very similar. It's about how humanity has polluted the planet, and so now now we got to look for another planetary home, and there's treachery back and forth and double crossing, and it's it's actually a pretty good flick. I went in. See, I love science fiction.
And I knew, I even joked with my friend Brad, called it the environmentalist flick. But, and that's essentially what it was going to be. But I at the same time, I'm always willing to jump at the chance to go to a movie that my wife has any slight inclination of seeing that I might like. And she can't stand science fiction, but see, she loves Matthew McConaughey. Hence, my foot in the door to go see a sci-fi flick with my wife. And I was surprised. It was pretty good. At the end, there was one little thing that I felt that they could have done that would have made it a little better. But overall, it wasn't a bad flick. You know, the environmentalist crap, you kind of expected it and all this other stuff. But they didn't play real heavy on it in the sense of trying to put across an agenda as much as that's just the way it is, you know, in the scenery of that particular world or time or, you know, in our near future or whatever. Now, that said, there was an interesting scene that my wife saw me grin after, and then she could only shake her head. And it was kind of a Common Core moment. It was very fascinating. There's a scene where McConaughey's daughter is in trouble. He has to go to a parent-teacher conference, and after he talks to the teacher, she gets suspended for 3 days. So when he comes out, she's like, so how'd it go? And he says, I got you suspended for 3 days. Anyway, and what it was is the new curriculum, the new textbooks, and the teacher, man, is incredible on this. Teach that we didn't actually go to the moon. It was a propaganda campaign to force the Russians to spend lots of money on space exploration, useless, worthless space exploration to fight the Cold War against the commies. And Matthew McConaughey's like sitting there like, you don't believe we went to the moon? What? Well, he used to work for NASA in his younger days before NASA was funded and vanished because, you know, the government decided more money needed to go into like growing food and saving the planet. But anyway, so, and he goes off on this chick, and when listening to her talk about what she felt about the propaganda and the misinformation of us going to the moon and all this other stuff, and how the textbooks are changing to make sure the children hear the proper story. And I mean, for a moment, McConaughey sounded like he could be a conservative, and she sounded like she was pushing Common Core. It was absolutely incredible, and I just grinned when he pretty much put her in her place. And I'm grinning, and my wife looks over at me because she knows me, and she's like, oh, crap, you know, shaking her head.
Well, you know, that teacher, I'll guarantee, I mean, because how far in the future does this take place? Like a century or century and a half, something like that? No. This is near future. Well, it must not be that near if they can have access to stable wormholes. That's the other thing about this.
They didn't gain access to the wormhole in that way. It was pretty much thrown in their lap and given to them. Now they are able to get out to Saturn, you know, in a pretty much a jiffy. So yeah, they got artificial gravity. So yeah, you know, from a point of view of someone like you and I, it's got to be quite a ways out there. But they treat it as if it's not too far in the near future. The truck. They can still on the road today.
The reason I bring that up is because, you know, even if it's as the movie depicts it of being just like a 2-3 generations ahead, that's this teacher was herself would have been indoctrinated in Common Core, and her parents before her, and her grandparents, and so I mean, this is as far as she knows. As far as she's ever been told, well, this is fact. You know,
that's the way the character comes across. She can't believe that there's any idiot on the planet that even believes we actually went to the moon.
And which, of course, has its own irony. And now in the movie, they have to actually find another planet. Hence the name of the movie, Interstellar. So they need manned space flight after they got rid of it generations earlier. So I'm not even really sure how that works. But But it illustrates how insidious this process is of Common Core. Generation after generation after generation, and eventually it becomes orthodoxy, it becomes conventional wisdom, and nobody would know any different. And that's what sets Matthew McConaughey's character off in the first place. Because he does know better.
Exactly. And he has books, old books, a textbook that he had when he grew up that he points to this idiot teacher that he brings with him. And the daughter has a room full of books, old books that tell the truth, and so on and so forth. And once again, the way they depict this is within the next 20 years. I mean, they don't depict it as being that far out in the future. So apparently they think in the next decade or so we're going to get some amazing stuff done. But basically, when it comes
God
to NASA,
knows how.
Yeah, as it's explained, is NASA, it gets defunded, but it's kept in secret by the government on a very small scale of scientists, just in case. And then when they discover this wormhole, which they discover was placed there by no accident.
Of course.
Well, we had to get help. I don't want to ruin the movie, though, because who we got help from and all that, it's an integral part of the story. And it's a pretty good twist. So, and no, it's not a bunch of beans with crystal skulls. But anyway, that all said, the reason why I brought that up is because Common Core and that type of indoctrination through the school system, it's not something that the liberal left doesn't, refuses to recognize. They may know it's out there, and maybe this writer of this has a conservative streak. Maybe it's just, they're willing to notice a little reality. I don't know, but it's not something that they don't understand. Now, that all said, one of the stories you put on there, I wanted to put on, and when I saw you did it, I decided not to. But the other one was fascinating. Your first story, which I referred to for this, was how Common Core opposition is creating a lot of stuff going well for the homeschooling angle. And I wanted to tell you, by the way, anytime and every time that something on Common Core winds up on Political Pistachio, a Common Core follower, an organization that fights against Common Core on Twitter, always retweets them. That's the only stories on Political Pistachio they retweet is what we have about Common Core. But it is interesting. It does get out there beyond just the Political Pistachio audience. But anyway, and the answer to what you basically put up there on Political Pistachio about Common Core really encouraging homeschooling, the answer to that is, well, yeah. I mean, let's see. Government imposed, or the way we were taught with the truth and like books. That, and I want to go back to something real quick. My wife, she has 5 degrees. One of them is a bachelor's, 4 of them are associates. One of her associate's degrees is in mathematics. The woman is very intelligent. My joke with her has always been she's smarter than 85% of the population. Unfortunately for her, I'm smarter than 95% of the population. But it's a joke, people. I'm not that conceited. I know darn well it's only 94%.
Of course not, because Doug is a humble man. Liberty Free Media Group says so.
Yeah, of course I'm joking around, but I play that kind of stuff with my wife. One of my jokes has always been, honey, you're smarter than 85% of the people out there. Granted, 85% of the people out there are morons, but you're smarter than 85% of the people out there. But anyway, so she's got this. Of course, none of those morons listen to our show. We have the most intelligent audience out there. But anyway,
absolutely.
Get past all the little jokes and all that. My wife has an associate's in mathematics, and she's sitting down to help a first grade grandson with this map, and she can't figure it out. She has to go to YouTube, and then even then she can't figure it out. It's so complicated, so ridiculous, so it's
convoluted.
Ridiculous. And convoluted was the word I was thinking of. Yeah, but anyway, and my wife says, I don't get it, man. The only person he's even going to be able to even get any answers from is the teacher. I said, exactly. You just hit the whole point of Common Core.
Oh yeah, the whole point of Common Core is to not just not teach kids how to think, but to actively discourage them from doing so. To actively, practically make it inevitable that they have to consult an authority figure to tell them what to do, how to think. Period. Just it's anti-thought.
In other words, folks, to make it in such a way that you can't help them, there's no possibility. If they want any help, they've got to turn to the state.
Oh, like for example, the state of North Carolina, where homeschooling. North Carolina is already a homeschooling hotbed, and homeschooling rose 14% just last year. And now that's North Carolina, right? Of course, North Carolina. That's hayseed, Andy Taylor. They can't even reelect Kay Hagel. I mean, sure, they'd be Mayberry RFDing their way to homeschooling. But actually, similar increases have been seen in Virginia, California, and New York. Last I checked, we're not hotbeds of red state sentiment. I found that to be fascinating.
My first Constitution seminar was to a local ISP, Independent Study Program, or homeschool school, group of homeschool parents that work together. Anyway, and now I hope that a lot of you know about the story of the German family who fled Germany, came to the United States because in Germany, homeschooling is illegal. Now, that's a law that's been on the books a very long time. More specifically, it was put on the books by Hitler. And
they never rescinded that?
And it's still on the books. The Hitleric law of no homeschooling is still on the books in Germany. This family flees Germany, comes here, then they receive crap because they went to New York. And, of course, New York being very liberal, they still were, under fire. But anyway, but that would never happen here in the United States, how it's going.
It might just be possible. You could ask a couple in Missouri who they have 4 kids. They're homeschooling their kids. Now, let me just preface this. Yes, it's in Missouri, in Nottoway County, actually. But let's just preface this.
So we're not talking some big giant blue state.
No, it's Missouri is a state that tends to vote Republican in presidential elections, but it has a Democrat governor, and it's a Democrat. There are 2 U.S. senators are split between Republican and Democrat.
So they're not really sure what they are. Okay.
Well,
but it's not a big state. Is my point. It's not. In other words, it's not Minnesota.
No, it's not Minnesota. It's not New York. It's not Vermont. It's not Massachusetts. It's not a blue state. It's a red-leaning, red-ish swing state. Okay. But I want to preface this with the definition of of what a home invasion is, because a home invasion is defined as an illegal and usually forceful entry to an occupied private dwelling with violent intent to commit a crime against the occupant, such as robbery, assault, rape, murder, or kidnapping. Okay, that's a home invasion. Now, let me describe what happened to this particular couple, homeschooling couple, in Nottoway County, Missouri. This was from moonbattery.com. A police raid on the home of a Missouri homeschool family involved the use of a taser and pepper spray. The children were ultimately removed from the home and placed in the custody of social services. A Nottoway County sheriff and an officer, a deputy, entered the home without a warrant. Now, let's see. Let's just go down the list here.
Wait. Now, let me ask a question. The children are placed in the custody of social services. So, is homeschooling now considered abuse?
Child endangerment, actually. Wow. That's what the parents were charged with. Now let's just go down that home invasion definition list again. Let's see. Illegal. Let's see. It violated the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. Yep. Check. Forceful entry to an occupied private dwelling. Yep. Check. With violent intent. Let's see. Taser, pepper spray. Yeah, that counts. Check. To commit a crime against the occupants, specifically assault and kidnapping, check. Yeah, that most definitely qualifies as a home invasion. Now, the reason why the cops were sent into this family's home to terrorize and assault the parents and terrorize the kids and kidnap them and put them into social services, remand them to the custody of the state, is because a social services worker requested an investigation into the home because it was allegedly, and I quote, messy. That's it. It was messy.
A couple of blocks on the floor, a few puzzle pieces maybe on the table.
Yeah, something like that. It's cluttered.
It was messy. So if a social worker decides you keep a messy house, they can take your children, tase you, arrest you. What the? We are talking about Missouri, because this sounds like going back to that story about the German couple and maybe even under Adolf Hitler or something here. This is not something that happens in America, right?
Now the good news is a Nottoway County court has ruled against the sheriff in question, Darren White, and Captain David Glidden in the homeschooling family case. The court ruled that the use of a taser and pepper spray on the mother and father violated the United States Constitution. Gee, you think? Let's see.
Even the fact that it had to go to court, that they didn't immediately go, "Wow, that was stupid." And I understand that the left they're so blinded they have scales over their eyes, but I mean, I don't see what it is though, folks, is they believe it's okay. It's like a conversation I had with a homosexual the other day. Oh boy, this is going to get interesting. He doesn't understand my complaint when I use this argument. You believe that homosexuality is normal, I don't. Therefore, you believe you can use the force of law to force that belief upon me, businesses, and school children. However, because you believe that Christianity is fantasy, I could not do the same. And he says, right.
Moral supremacism.
Yeah,
right,
in other words, they believe homeschooling is dangerous because it's against the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
It's against the liberal agenda, so therefore it's so dangerous, it's so damaging to these poor children. What do you do? It's like like going back to what I was talking about that movie earlier. And the teacher's arguing with the father. You don't know what you're teaching your child. You're damaging your child. This is dangerous to be teaching your child such things. You don't know any better. We are trained. We are educated by the system. Therefore, we have supremacy. We are supreme over you on how to raise the children.
Well, see, there is no evil person. There is no dictator. There is no authoritarian ruler who has ever lived on this planet that didn't believe that they were doing the Lord's work. There's none that do not and have
or
not believed that they,
or at least what they believe was the right thing for the society in general and in the future and so on.
They think that they're morally supreme. They think and because they believe that they alone are morally, that their self-righteousness imbues them with a belief that the ends justify the means, that they are entitled. They are entitled. They have an absolute right to rule everybody else's life, and nobody else has any moral right to stop them.
And common sense goes out the window, which ties it into, and we got to get moving on this. The next story, story number 10: abortion doctor returns child to pedophile. See, abortion is such a big deal to these people. It is so morally okay, and they must defend it at all costs, that a child, a teen or younger, who comes in for an abortion because they were impregnated by their pedophile guardian or neighbor or whoever,
kidnapper,
can have the abortion, it not be reported to the parents, and then the child is returned to the pedophile that got them pregnant in the first place. That's how blind these people are.
Well, you have to remember, it's not just that they think abortion is okay or should be okay. To them, abortion is a moral imperative.
For a number of reasons, because you can go from eugenics to the population bomb to, whatever.
Oh, sure, as long as the right people are being euthanized. It's the ends to which abortion has gone, quite honestly, have surpassed what anybody ever originally predicted would be the case once we went down this slippery slope.
And the thing is, now think about this, though, how innocently things like this can begin. I had this conversation with my wife this morning. My wife was watching some reality show or something on her DVR. She records everything and watches because she works during prime time, so she watches everything in the morning. And she says, and I'm in the dining room doing something, and I can hear from the other room. She says, "Oh my God," she says, "there are some people that should not be allowed to have children." And I responded, "Oh yeah, nice observation, Margaret Sanger."
Allowed?
She didn't understand what I meant, so I tried to explain. She says, "Yeah, but Doug, you have to admit that there are some people. It doesn't matter. They have to have the freedoms that you have. Freedom is not it's not freedom if you're picking and choosing who gets the freedom."
Yeah, it kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah, but Doug, but nothing. All right, the guy's an idiot, but should he be? Because he's an idiot, he should lose his freedoms?
Well, idiocy.
It doesn't say we the people, except for the people we don't think are smart enough.
Idiocy is not genetic. Idiocy is learned.
Margaret Sanger and my wife seem to disagree with that.
Well, there can be learning disabilities. There can be handicaps. But in terms,
and I brought that up, and my wife says, "Well, society says abort them before they get out of the womb." And I say, "Yeah, that's part of the problem."
Yeah, and look where it leads.
And of course, there's the famous story of Beethoven. If Beethoven was a pregnancy of today, he'd have been aborted
because he was deaf and dumb.
He was deaf. Both parents had syphilis.
And yet, oftentimes God gives the most exquisite gifts, whether music or brilliance or look at Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking's. He's a quadriplegic. He can't move. He had I don't know if he was born that way or if he. I think he has ALS, doesn't he, or something like that. But God gave him a brilliant mind, which he's misused in a lot of ways. But still, I mean, that's what oftentimes is the case. But you look at this story and you look at pedophiles kidnapping like 12-year-old girls, and they take them. They take them clandestinely to a local abortician, and the abortician performs the abortion, and then lets the pedophile go on his way with his captive. And that's not an exception.
And conveniently doesn't fill out the paperwork that the state requires them to regarding such a situation.
And that's not an exception. That appears to be the rule. Just like Kermit Gosnell last year was turned out to, he is much more the rule than the abortion industry will ever admit.
Now these first two stories about our children. They're trying to take our children and kill our children, and they're doing it under a federal list of authorities. And last time I read the Constitution, which was like this morning, I didn't see. I'm sorry, I've got that thing open pretty much every day, but I have never seen anything in there about the federal government having any authority over education, curriculums, schools, abortion.
Doesn't.
None of that. It's not there. There's no authority. But see, tyrannies try to get that authority, and they need crisis to get that, and that's what brings us to story number 9, what's happened in Mexico. See, the violence and the whole division, what's happening here, the racial division and the class warfare. What's gotten so bad in Mexico, especially with the drug gangs and cartels and so forth, that they've decided, and the corruption in local government and local police forces, that the president of Mexico is coming to the conclusion that we just got to get rid of local enforcement, because nobody knows how to control the people in the proper way like the federales.
Well, federales. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, who has been in office for a couple years. He's still settling in, but he has
definitely no Sensei Fox, that's for sure.
Yes, there's a lot of irony to this one. In fact, the AP. Well, actually, this is uk.news.yahoo.com. So it's British, the British branch of the Associated Press or Reuters, one of the two. They describe him as an embattled president. Interestingly enough, bet they never describe Barack. Bet they would never describe Barack Obama that way. But he's unveiled sweeping reforms, which I'd like to ban that word from the English language, frankly, because reforms are never good. Have you ever noticed that? Healthcare reform, education reform, et cetera, et cetera. But he's unveiled a set of sweeping reforms to dissolve corruption-plagued municipal police forces nationwide amid an outcry over the role of gang-affiliated authorities in the presumed slaughter of 43 students in a southern Mexican state. Now, what do you have already, just in that lead, what do you see? You see, first of all, now I have no doubt that local municipal police forces are indeed corrupt. I mean, that's well known and well documented.
I agree. Everybody in Southern California knows that you get pulled over in Tijuana, if you got a 20 in your wallet, you're out of there, no problem. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's the way it used to be. Now, as the cops down there, it's whatever's in your wallet. But it used to be just a 20.
But of course,
this is nothing new. But this is what happens when you have a system based on authoritarianism, and Mexico always has.
Well, we'll get. I want to put that in a little bit of historical perspective here, but so again, it's pretty much established and long known that that local police forces in Mexico, municipal police forces, are corrupt. But we're talking more than just, slip the federale $20 if you get pulled over in Tijuana and go on your way. We're talking gang affiliated authorities. So basically, right, in a lot of local police forces, local town clowns, they're basically being run by the drug cartel. So it's not that local police officials and police departments in Mexico aren't corrupt, but the interesting effect of it is that it's gotten so bad that now you have the public crying out for, and tell us if this doesn't sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen, the Mexican people are crying out for their central government to do something. Of course, there's no possibility, absolutely none, that the central government in Mexico City could ever be corrupt themselves.
Or as a number of the leaders of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics used to say, the Americans will raise the red flag of socialism themselves.
And they won't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah, they'll be glad to do it because there'll be chaos, there'll be crisis.
So, and Mexico is not unfamiliar with authoritarianism and tyranny. I mean, they have a long, at least intermittent history of resorting to authoritarianism. I mean, if you recall the People's Revolutionary Party, the PRI, which was in power pretty much for decades, and they were corrupt, and they were definitely authoritarian, and their grip started to slip in the last couple of decades or so, and this I wouldn't call this as Mexico moving toward centralized authoritarian tyranny. I would describe it as Mexico drifting back in that direction. Because it's someplace they've been before.
If you want historical context, I mean, you can go all the way back to the beginning. I mean, the difference between the Spanish colonists and the English colonists is clear. The Spanish colonists came under created an authoritarian system that was ruled by the military, and they came as conquerors and destroyers. The English colonists came as entrepreneurs, and in order to survive, they need to be self-reliant, hardworking, personally responsible, and individuals. I mean, right from the beginning, the difference was set up. But it also goes to something else, and that's the difference between the Protestant Church and the Catholic Church. The nations that were basically the Roman Empire nations and and that were under the Catholic Church tend to be authoritarian, like the Church, with this authoritarian system, with the Pope in control and the King is divinely appointed, and so on and so forth. The countries like Britain and Germany, they weren't dominated by the Catholic control. The Romans called them the barbarians. The word barbarian actually means not Roman. And it was a different system. So basically, in the New World, the line between the Roman Empire and the barbarians is the American-Mexican border.
Which now has been largely, if not entirely, erased.
Well, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get
now,
to that.
tyranny has many faces.
And many colors, green, for example.
But tyranny is always pushed through a centralized mandate. That's how they do it. And, it's funny. Last time I checked, the environment is also not authorized regarding the federal government and the Constitution. And also the president's not authorized to change laws or make laws without the legislature. Yet, Obama's Environmental Protection Agency is creating tighter ozone standards and tighter environmental standards, for that matter, because we have to save ourselves from this planet. Otherwise, it's going to wind up like Interstellar. Or it's going to be a big giant dust bowl. I mean, we've got to do something about it.
Yeah, story number 8. Obama's EPA issues tighter ozone standards, and it's a deliberate job killer. Now, the funny thing, it's amazing how, I don't want to jump too far ahead in the stack here, but let's just say a certain New York senator gave a speech, a high-profile speech earlier this week, in which he said that Democrats made a mistake in pursuing health care reform when they did in 2009 and 2010, rather than focusing on the economy and jobs and aiding the middle class. Now, these are the same people who love the EPA and use the EPA to just shove more and more ruinously expensive, job-destroying, tyrannical environmental regulations down our throats. And really, it's also nonsensical. Now, this is what the EPA is going to do with this set of rules. Now, it has said, the EPA said it would set national ambient air quality standards, referring specifically to ground-based ozone, between 65 and 70 parts per billion. Currently, it's 75 parts per billion. Now, that little teeny tiny change, which is, as a practical matter, not going to make any difference whatsoever, no matter what the green extremists claim, in
when it comes to the environment, yeah.
That is going to cost U.S. business, the private sector, $270 billion additional dollars a year.
Wow. With that kind of regulation, it almost forces them to, jump and act exactly as the federal government wants them to, and it may even eventually destroy the private sector, and it might force the federal government to take it over just to save us. Just saying.
Well, there's a couple things to be pointed out about this. In the first place, the nonsensical, whatever the term for that is, nonsensicalness, the insanity. I mean, 75 parts per billion isn't low enough. I mean, even the EPA admits that attempting to lower the standard to 60 parts per billion is at insane, totally counterproductive cost. Will only improve air quality, which is to say, which is already plenty clean. Thank you very much. That the EPA, even the EPA admits it'll only improve air quality slightly, which is to say, not at all for all intents and purposes. And so, first of all, why are they stopping at 60 parts per billion? Why don't they just eliminate it altogether? Why do things in half measures? But the other thing about it, to me, is this is much more. Well, let me back up, come at it from the other way. Remember how visible it was when Senate Democrats killed again the Keystone XL pipeline.
Right.
It's very visible. Everybody saw it. Keystone XL is hugely popular. Everybody wants it. Everybody knows it would create jobs, and the Democrats once again killed it, just like Barack Obama's been kicking it ahead for 6 years, endlessly studying it, and apparently unable to make up their
agenda. Because the agenda is more important than what's best for the country. Right.
But that was visible. This is much less visible, and this is really the other side of the coin. This is the other end from which the green extremists approach their anti-energy jihad, and anti-industry, anti-economy jihad, anti-jobs jihad, is by illegal, unconstitutional, regulatory means that very few people pay attention to, gets buried in the business news or something. It doesn't make headline news like high-profile votes in the Senate over the Keystone XL pipeline. And this is how they do it. It's insidious, but this is how they do it. Once they've taken more and more of Congress's Article 1, Section 1 legislative power, not authority, but power, then they can just do this endlessly, and it happens under the radar, and we're just railroaded into more and more of a socialist authoritarian system with and nobody even realizes it. Hello.
Sorry, I was ordering my Chinese.
Oh, okay. Well, got to take care of the the important things.
Yeah, well, I knew you had the story covered. All right, you're ready for story number 7, right?
Well, let's roll right along. You called it story number 7. You called it Iranian arrogance. I referred to it as Iranian triumph, because this is really I mean, the Iranians. They see, apparently this week. Remember, this past Monday was the deadline for the conclusion of the current round of how long has it been going on now? 15 years. Well over a decade, that the endless Big 5+1 talks over Iran's nuclear program have been going on. And sure enough, the Obama regime decided to give the talks another 7-month extension, and the Iranians were laughing at us. They were openly laughing at us. In fact, they came right out and said, the United States surrendered to our awesome power. And the Obama administration really wasn't denying it. And so on and on it goes. I mean, the whole thing has become such an absolute farce that I am running out of superlatives, adjectives to describe this. I mean, this is going on for over a decade, and nobody seems to be willing to admit the Iranians are, I suppose. They're coming out and saying what everybody is thinking, which is that, yeah, Obama did surrender to the mullahs again, bowed to their awesome power, because he doesn't want to do anything about it. He wants that piece of paper that he can come stumbling down the steps of Air Force One, waving around like Neville Chamberlain. That's all he cares about. He wants a peace deal. He wants a peace agreement. He wants to say, oh, we have finally achieved peace in our time, and we have an alliance with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And meanwhile, the Israelis are the only ones who, A, can appear capable of recognizing what's happening and what's coming, because it's going to be coming right at them, and B, are willing to come out and say it.
Yeah, those warmongers.
I mean, it is just the more time that passes, the more surreal it gets.
It is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. One of the other stories that I canned kind of ties in this a little bit is it's amazing how well the Muslims have convinced everybody that they're not who they really are, and to the point where not only are we getting things like this going on, but they're actually turning against Israel, as in Israel suffers under attack after attack and so on and so forth. A great example is Starbucks. Starbucks Coffee has over 600 locations in Middle Eastern countries.
That's interesting.
None of which are in Israel.
That's even more interesting.
Yeah, they used to, but they pulled out their last. I think it was in 2003 when they ended any contracts in Israel because of what they called operational challenges.
Operational challenges, huh?
I mean, they can't see it. Well, what they see is money. What they see is agenda.
They could see it. They just don't want to see it. It doesn't fit their agenda, so they just disregard it. Now, you want to know what the current proposal to the Iranians is? This is what I'm talking about, the surreality of this. I mean, it goes beyond stupid. It goes beyond nonsensical. It goes beyond idiotic. You just got to pace yourself, because it's never going to stop getting even more just gobsmackingly surreal until the nukes start falling on Tel Aviv and Manhattan and so forth. The current proposal would restrict Iran's nuclear program for 10 years, or in other words, give them an additional 10 years to, at their leisure, build a bigger nuclear arsenal than Israel's and America's combined. And this current proposal would cap Iran's ability to produce weapons-grade material, but the agreement would require Iran to give its material to the Russians to be converted to peaceful use. That would be the same Russia that seeded the Iranians' nuclear program in the first place 20 years ago.
Yeah, because everybody knows that we can trust the Russians.
And it just gave the mullahs another nuclear reactor and would be more than happy to use Iran as its own nuclear cat's paw. In fact, that sounds precisely like a strategy Vladimir Putin would come up with. But yeah, we can trust the Russians. They're totally trustworthy. We can trust them to be what they are.
Can you hear that? Can you feel that stabbing in your eye?
All the time, my friend, all the time.
Okay.
So, it's just we're just waiting for the EMP. Yeah. I love the mullahs chortling here. Iranian official. I mean, here's a quote from the. From the news story on the Iranian reaction to Obama's latest cave-in. Iranian officials are openly ridiculing the United States and bragging that their regime's nuclear rights will be recognized soon. The Americans have very clearly surrendered to Iran's might, and this is obvious in their behavior in the region and in the negotiations, according to Major General Mohammad Ali Jafari, commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards. He said that after the extension of the talks was announced. If the United States ever decides to launch an attack on Iran, our war will end by conquering Palestine, he said, which I think the Jews might have something to say about. But, as far as EMPing the United States, I mean, I'm looking at a diagram of the EMP effect right now, and if the Iranians parked, and this has been depicted many times on documentaries and so forth, if the Iranians parked a barge off our eastern seaboard in international waters, launched even a mid-range ballistic missile, detonated a nuke at 300 miles above Kansas, it would fry the entire electrical grid of the continental United States. That's all it would take is one. They don't have to build a whole arsenal of nukes to take out our cities individually. All they need to do is blow up one at a high enough altitude, and the electromagnetic pulse effect would fry electrical transformers, the electrical grid, and any electrical appliance attached to it, and bam, we would go back technologically 2 centuries at least in the space of a few minutes.
I've always believed the EMP was going to come from the North Koreans myself, but although the Muslims wouldn't be surprised either. Which brings up another movie, which I really want to see. I really want to see it just because. And that's The Interview. Only because I know that it ticked off the North Koreans and they banned the movie from North Korea. Did you hear about the Interview? Did you hear about it? Seth Rogen and Seth Rogen and the kid that played the Green Goblin in the Spider-Man movie, the son.
Yeah, James Franco.
James Franco. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So him and Seth Rogen are supposed to be like big talk show hosts, and it turns out that Kim Fat Young Il is a big fan, or Young Un, I'm sorry. He's a huge fan of the show, and so he wants them to come to North Korea he wants them to come to North Korea to interview him. And in the trailer, the CIA, before they're going over there, they say, yes, we want you to to go, and we want you to take him out. They're like, what, like out to coffee? They're like, no.
Yeah, to Starbucks.
Yeah. So, anyway, I just want to see that movie just because. I'm sorry, EMPs in North Korea reminded me of that.
Well, I mean,
the North. Thought, the thing is, an EMP, and this is not something that is theoretical. I mean, it's been proven that it is.
Oh, it's happened before.
Yeah.
It's happened before in huge nuclear tests, early in the Cold War. Both the Soviet Union and ourselves. In fact, we tested a nuke. That's what really illustrated it, because they did a huge nuke test in the somewhere in the South Pacific, and it created such a large EMP effect that it caused electrical problems everywhere from New Zealand to Hawaii.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we switched to underground nuclear testing, for just that reason. But it's of course, the Iranians are getting their ballistic missile program assistance from the NOCOs. So there is a connection.
This is true.
This is true, and that.
All the bad guys know each other real well.
Amazing how that works. It's almost like they're an axis of evil or something. And now, story number 6. This is a pretty good segue here. Chuck Hagel is fired. Oh, I'm sorry. He resigned under pressure.
Yeah, but
from,
and
the Pentagon.
And I don't know why. Well, I know why, but the media hasn't caught on to this. You and I have. But it's a direct result, I think, of him disagreeing with the one.
Oh, of course. In fact, I went back and looked at what I wrote at the time at politicalpistachio.com, when, especially after the Islamic State rose to prominence and started beheading Americans right and left, and their blitzkrieg across Iraq and Syria. And you kept
surprisingly got it right.
Yeah, you kept seeing Chuck Hagel. In fact, it was an interesting pattern, because you kept seeing Chuck Hagel come out and state the obvious, that ISIS is a serious national security threat, and we got to deal with them now, and they mean business, and they're worse than Al Qaeda ever was. And at the same time at the same time as, or in close proximity to when Barack Obama was out there saying, well, we don't have a strategy for dealing with the Islamic State, or as he calls it, ISIL, because he concedes the entire Middle East to these people.
And he wasn't worried anyway, because they were like the junior varsity team.
Oh yeah. In fact, basically Chuck Hagel's, there were 2 offenses that he committed that were apparently enough to get him fired. Oh, I'm sorry, forced to resign under pressure. One was that he was stating the obvious, which of course that ISIS is a national security threat, and that they do mean business, and that they are a bigger threat than Al Qaeda ever was, which of course went completely against the narrative of the Islamic State being the junior varsity and not being a threat, and we can help we can aid the Free Syrian Army, the moderate rebels in Syria, who are all now on the same side and allies and trying to kill us. But the other transgression that now former Defense Commissar Chuck Hagel committed was that he made the mistake of sending indiscreet memos to none other than Susan Rice, the national security liar, to the same effect. So it's like, not only was he going off the reservation, not only was he refusing to toe the party line about ISIS not being a threat and being no big deal, but he was actually apparently trying to get people within what do they call it? What did the news story call it? The White House's insular team of national security advisors. It's like he was trying to recruit some of them to his side. He was trying to get allies, because And you know, now we got to remember who Chuck Hagel is. I mean, aside from a decorated Vietnam combat veteran, so we thank him for his service. But you know, remember who Chuck Hagel was. Chuck Hagel was John McCain's butt buddy, along with in the Senate, along with Lindsey Graham, and you know, anti-Iraq war dissident within the Republican Party. That's why Barack Obama recruited him in the first place. Barack Obama recruited Chuck Hagel to be the Republican face for his completion of his decimation of the United States military.
Yeah.
Preside over the sequestration and the cuts.
That way he could convince everybody he's bipartisan, but yet get a defense secretary that's a anti-war guy like him.
And yet, see, this is why I don't question why Barack Obama recruited and hired Chuck Hagel to be Secretary of Defense. What I consider Chuck Hagel to have been a fool for accepting the offer, because I don't know. I mean, I guess this just illustrates the blindness, the naivete of rhinos. That it's almost like he realized, well, you mean the Tea Partiers were right about this guy? Really? Well, he found out firsthand. It just makes you wonder who's going to take that job next. Now, in fact, there is a well, actually, I have to amend this after I mention it. The front runner was thought to be the number 3 person at the Pentagon, technically a woman. She looks to me like if Rudy Giuliani underwent gender reassignment, but her name is Michelle Flournoy, and she was considered to be the front runner to replace Chuck Hagel, but she later this week withdrew her name from consideration, interestingly enough, so I don't know. Do you think Barack Obama might just go the next 2 years without a Secretary of Defense at all?
No. He'll find somebody. I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of people out there that, you know, can look tough but be pretty much harmless. You know, Yosemite Sam, Daffy Duck. I mean, he'll choose somebody.
Oh, yeah. How about Susan Rice? Susan Rice, from Barack Obama's point of view, Susan Rice has all the traits, all the strengths that with Chuck Hagel were weaknesses. She does what she's told. She says what she's told. She doesn't have a mind of her own. She's a robot. They just program her, wind up the thing at her back, and send her off on the Sunday show. Send her off on whatever mission you've given her, and she'll carry it out.
Yeah. She'll tell any lie. She'll tell any lie you tell her to, and she'll make sure she appears on the talk shows to do it.
I mean, do not feel sorry for Chuck Hagel, folks. Do not feel sorry for this guy.
Because if he's willing to write a book like Gates did, it'll do well.
Yeah, I'm already speculating as to what the title will be. Because I mean, you know, he made a name for himself by being anti-Bush and siding with the Democrats, and now look where it got him. I mean, something along the lines of sadder but wiser. I was a rhino.
Maybe the title of his book should be something like "Standing Up to Presidents," you know, or something like that.
Yeah, well, which one fired him?
The one man who dared to stand against Bush and Obama.
Yeah, that's his claim to bipartisanship. I'm gonna guess. Well, there's not a natural segue here, but we can go on to story number 5. More consequences of Obamacare. Interesting. Now, there were a couple of these that.
Which, by the way, real quick, ties into our first guest today. Our first
Yeah.
guest is a surgeon. He's going to be talking about Gruber's comments, lack of transparency.
Looking forward to it. That's the in the first segment today, and then in the second segment, Jerome Corsi will be the guest. So that's something to look forward to later on in hour number 3 of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza on Constitution Radio, AM 1050, FM 106.3, KCAA. Now, I put a post up at politicalpistachio.com about how Obamacare will combine with Barack Obama's unlawful amnesty to create massive layoffs. Mainly because of the fact that supposedly, in fact, there was another post I put up just last night that kind of tied in with the same idea about how the incentives that are created by, on the one hand, amnesty, but on the other hand, the fact that Obamacare ostensibly is set up to where illegal aliens are not eligible for it, which, I mean, all Barack Obama has to do is just amend his one of his executive decrees or the other, either about amnesty or about Obamacare, and fix that problem real quick. But in the meantime, it creates an incentive, since illegals are not eligible for Obamacare. Think of the incentives here. Remember how I say life is all about incentives. So if you create a situation where employers, employers are under the employer mandate will be required to offer health care under an Obamacare compliant policy, which means hugely more expensive to their employees. Well, if they get all they have to do. Given that illegal aliens are technically not eligible for Obamacare, all they have to do is dump all their existing employees, hire a bunch of illegals, and then they can get out of Obamacare altogether.
There you go.
So I mean, it creates an incentive for more job destruction, huge layoffs, and the hiring of illegal aliens. And what would be the result of that? Well, rampant unemployment. It would be hugely unpopular because we go back to that exit poll on Election Day 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago now, that showed that 80% of voters are against illegal immigration and illegal immigrants coming in and taking American jobs. So that would stir up anger, or would stir up controversy, but where would that anger be directed? In this case, it would be directed at employers, it would be directed at businesses for following the incentives that the Obama regime would have given them. And then it turns it away from Barack Obama, and then he can say, oh, I'm going to fight for the little guy, maybe by issuing another decree making illegal aliens eligible for Obamacare, which would be its own little curse there, it seems to me. Of course, a couple other stories regarding Obamacare. The Republicans are going, in fact, Darrell Iss's House Government Reform and Oversight Committee on December the 9th is going to, he's invited Jonathan Gruber to testify regarding his verbal indiscretions of the past year, which, I don't know. I don't really think anything's going to come out of that. I mean, I stopped being interested with Republican-run committees calling left-wingers, Democrat administration officials, etc., to testify before Congress a long time ago. I mean, 20 years ago or more, because nothing ever comes out of it. But I mean, it could provide a few interesting news cycles. And then that gets to Chuck Schumer again. Chuck, that was the certain New York senator I was referring to earlier, in case you were wondering, those of you in Malaga, Washington. But Chuck Schumer earlier this week gave a high-profile speech in which he said that now he believes, and I thought this was funny, because he said that it was a mistake for Democrats to pursue Obamacare in 2009 and 2010, but that they should have focused on the economy and jobs and helping the middle class. Well, there are two really funny things about that. One, I could swear that helping the middle class was one of the selling points, one of the rationales for Obamacare. I mean, that's what I recall. And the other part of that is, now, it wasn't current White House staffers, but several former White House staffers they took the words right out of my mouth. They said, it's funny, we don't remember Chuck Schumer saying anything like this 5 years ago when he was championing right alongside with us in public and in private the passage of the Unaffordable Care Less Act.
Well, he's nervous about his position.
Well, and let's think about that for a minute, because Chuck Schumer is the senior senator from the state of New York. Now, if Chuck Schumer, who was up for re-election again in 2016, if he's, and I tend to have my doubts about whether he's concerned about his own re-election, but certainly he's looking ahead to 2016 in a more general sense. And if Chuck Schumer is concerned about Obamacare and what effect it's already had on his party, I mean, because after December 6th, when Mary Landrieu goes down in Louisiana, 29 of the 60 Democrat senators who voted for Obamacare 5 years ago will be gone. Almost half. Which is very, very. In fact, that's an even bigger proportion than the almost 70 Democrats on the House side that are gone as a result of their vote for Obamacare. So it will be, it'll, both in the Senate and even in 2016, when the Republicans will have more seats and the field of battle, so to speak, as far as Senate races go, will be much more in the Democrats' favor. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. I heard so it's just it's.
You heard
the kind of, yeah, something like that. It was like a garbled something or other. But it's interesting to how Obamacare is the gift that keeps on giving. On the one hand, I mean, it's destroying between Obamacare and Obama's amnesty and just Barack Obama himself, because they're talking more and more. It's becoming harder and harder to escape noticing it about a Democrat civil war. The media was trying to push the idea that, well, now that the Republicans have taken both houses of Congress, that'll flush the GOP civil war out into the open even more, which, is, maybe, but nobody's talking about the Democrat civil war, and now it's starting to come out into the open. And you could look upon Schumer's speech as a shot across the White House bow. I've wondered for the longest time, privately, not publicly, but privately, how many Democrats have come to the realization that they inflicted upon themselves a almost literal Frankenstein's monster when they got behind this guy, because they don't know how to get rid of him, they don't know how to shut him up. He doesn't care about them. He only cares about himself. And now, I mean, they have taken bigger losses than the Democrats ever did under Clinton. So, the Democrat brand has been just decimated. I mean, we could be. you look at how the election results, or the results of elections in the Obama era, when Obama has been on the ballot versus when he hasn't been. In 2010 and 2014, oh my God. 63 House seats in 2010, 7 Senate seats back then, and then another 9 this time around. So it makes you wonder. I mean, we all knew that was going to be the case. We knew they were going to lose massive seats, but at the time they didn't seem to care, because this is their chance to lock in socialized medicine forever, and eventually it would all come back to them. I wonder if any of them are having any second thoughts at this point.
Well, they probably are having as many second thoughts as they're not. It's like Whoopi Goldberg. She cussed out Ann Coulter for being white. Did you see that? I don't think Whoopi's having second thoughts either.
Well, Whoopi's position is not in jeopardy. She'll have her celebrity, and she'll have her gated mansion and her fortune and her hoi polloi friends and little bubble of existential closure. She's not going to lose anything, but there are a lot of Democrats who have lost their political careers over this. Of course, that's how Barack Obama looks upon the Democrat Party in general. They're his minions. They're cannon fodder. It's all about him. That's why they call it ObamaCare. That's why it's his namesake. So he doesn't care what happens to them. He could care less what happens to Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Steny Hoyer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing that matters is what glorifies him, what enhances his power. You could even make the case that he's not even really a Democrat, only in the sense that the Democrat Party is for him what everything else is, a means to an end.
Well, and this is going to take us on to the next story. All he has to do is demonize the opposition, make the opposition seem to be dangerous, and he's got it made. All he has to do then is just put martial law into place.
Oh my goodness gracious! That's the first thing that came to mind. We're talking about the Austin shooter. Ladies and gentlemen, story number 4. A man with improvised explosive devices. Thursday night, overnight into Friday morning, opened fire on a number of government buildings, including the federal building and the Mexican consulate in Austin, Texas. The timing is very interesting because, of course, everyone remembers Gabby Gifford, what had the shooter that opened fire at Gabby Gifford, of course, being the former Democrat representative, one of them from Arizona, and this Jared Laughlin, wasn't that the gunman's name, if I remember right? Mm-hmm. And he burst in on a rally of hers, started shooting, and she was seriously injured. I think she suffered a head wound, and a federal judge, I think, was killed, and a number of other people were either injured or fatalities. And, of course, that happened not too long after the 2010 midterms, and that enabled the Democrats, that enabled the left to change the subject from just exactly why did they suffer such huge losses in the House and in the Senate to another round of let's confiscate everybody's guns and effectively repeal the Second Amendment. And so that's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this story. I thought, well, this will certainly give the anti-Second Amendment nuts fresh ammunition, as well as the left overall to change the subject again. And especially when I saw that the gunman in question, by the way, the only thing that makes what happened in Austin the other night different and better than what happened to Gabriella Giffords 4 years ago is that the only person who died was the gunman himself, because there happened to be a police officer present who whipped out he was putting horses away in a stable, and he happened to whip out his gun and bam, shoot the guy, even though he supposedly had some sort of homemade body armor. Just shot him and stopped his rampage after about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Well, the way I wrote this though was the way the officers described is it's not like he wasn't on duty, he wasn't walking the beat and all that jazz. He was at the police station, and granted, he is a police officer, but the way they described it was almost like another citizen that just so happened to be armed, and he had his firearm on him, and he's putting away the horses there, and apparently they've got a mounted patrol, and he's putting away the horses when this happens, and he's holding the horses with one hand, pulls out his firearm, and fires upon and kills the assailant with the other hand, with the gun in the other hand. Now, well, and my response has always been, the best way to stop bad guys with guns is good guys with guns, be it a cop or be it an average citizen. And this kind of harkens back also to that story we were talking about. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before about that place to eat there in Louisiana, where if you come in and you show your gun, you have it on your person, and you show it, you get a discount. And again, the owner's response was, "Hey, I'm the safest restaurant in town. I'm the safest restaurant in the state."
Yeah, because his restaurant's not a soft target.
Yeah, it's full of.
It's a hard
guys with
target.
guns.
It's like nobody's going to be stupid enough to try to knock over a gun store. I mean, it's just common sense. This guy that got killed in Austin might have been that stupid. I mean, for God's sake, he was shooting at a police station. For God's sake, but the media spin was absolutely incredible. Well, he had a political agenda. He must have been an anti-government guy with a political agenda. In other words, a Tea Partier that clings to his guns and Bible. Probably, I mean, they might as well just put that, because that's the way the uninformed are going to read it. Because they've got code words for it. That's the reason why they call any Muslim terrorist organization or terrorist leader a conservative Muslim. They use these words on purpose. And, sure.
And this guy being quote unquote anti-government, I can't count how many times I've had Democrats tell me how unpatriotic it is for me to be against the government. Patriotism is not love of government; it's love of country. But and so that's the reason they throw around that term, anti-government. Well, you're anti-government. You want chaos. Is the automatic thought. No, it's like I tell people, I'm not anti-government. I'm pro-constitutional government. But
pro-limited.
Anyway, but it fascinates me because, see, with all these shootings that we've been having, every last one of these shooters have been left-wing, progressive Democrats in gun-free zones, and they are dying to find a Tea Party, a conservative, or something, to pin this, gun violence on, because they've got to try to convince everybody we must take away the guns of these people.
These people, not all people, just these people.
That kind of goes back to that conversation earlier about abortion, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's all about right tribe, wrong tribe, us versus them. And of course, and as soon as I saw the fact that that this guy was shooting at not just federal buildings but at the Mexican consulate, I thought, oh, yeah, he must be anti-amnesty. Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, and that did get brought up in the article by NBC.
Oh hell yes, it did.
Because all the immigration discussions, yeah, they're looking for anything they can, and
well, they're desperate at this point. I mean, when 3/4 of the American people are vehemently, including majorities of every single demographic category, including Hispanics and Democrats, are against Barack Obama's unlawful executive amnesty decree, and 4 out of every 5 are against illegal immigration in general, then it's awfully hard to turn page and change the subject from that. So this is like it's a propaganda twofer, because not only do they get to try to depict this guy as being an anti-amnesty right-wing extremist, but also, of course, there's the anti-Second Amendment angle as well. So it makes it a propaganda blue plate special.
And we've got a president who's more corrupt than Nixon, more dishonest than Clinton, and more incompetent than Carter, and yet these people blindly follow him, and they fall for this kind of spin, and it's absolutely incredible. Meanwhile, as I put this in the article that I wrote about this, meanwhile we've got documented facts, statistics showing that in Britain and Australia, after they confiscated everybody's guns, it didn't take long either. Home invasion and violent crime rates went sky high. They went up. I had a Democrat I was having this discussion with. Matter of fact, I remember telling you about this discussion I had with this woman. It was after an MTRA meeting, and when we got to that particular topic, she says, "Yeah, but there was less shootings in those countries." Well, so you took away everybody's guns. So now instead of 10 shootings, there's only 2, but you ignore the fact that instead of 2 stabbings, there's now 10. I mean, and home invasions go up because, of course, now they're not worried about the possibility of the homeowner having a gun.
Yeah, every target is soft. Every target is guaranteed to be soft. I come back to this theme again. Life is about incentives. If you incentivize something, you're going to get more of it. If you disincentivize something, you're going to get less of it. And if you incentivize violent crime by guaranteeing that potential victims are more and more, or rather less and less likely to be able to defend themselves, then guess what? You're going to get more and more violent crime.
That's just the reality. Okay, story number 3. You want to talk about soft targets and hard targets?
Speaking of chaos. Amazingly enough, the rumors were true. The Ferguson, Missouri grand jury decided to not bow to mob pressure, lynch mob pressure, racist, animalistic lynch mob pressure, but rather focused on the facts at hand and the actual evidence, and decided not to indict Officer Darren Wilson. And, of course, this set off the predictable chaos, riots in Ferguson, Missouri, and around the country. There's so many stories and angles this week about that. The fact that most of the businesses burned down in Ferguson were owned by minorities. Somehow that was going to show Whitey. Not really sure how. And then, did you see that video? I mean, you posted about it, I think, about the Ferguson sympathizers who blocked that highway in California.
Yeah.
And there was that one black gentleman who was not happy with those people.
No, as a matter of fact, he went after the leader. It was the leader that had the bullhorn. Well, this guy's like, hey, I got to go to work. I have a life. I have responsibilities. And
6 kids to feed.
And understand something. There are 2 major arteries into San Diego from outside the city: Interstate 5 and Interstate 15. And they cut off Interstate 5 during a rush hour traffic.
Which they did. They did it deliberately. And part of the people, a large number of people who were kept, who were being blocked, were hospital workers.
Well, yeah, because see where they did it was right there at. Well, where they did it was right. It gets better than that. They did it right there at Noble, which is one off ramp away from. Are you ready? See, this is what they didn't put in the news. The medical center that's the next off ramp is the Veterans Administration Hospital.
Oh, boy.
These UCSD students, which is right next door to the VA. And I'm a patient of this the center. Trust me, I know the area they're talking about. These weren't just these weren't just medical personnel, but medical personnel for our veterans. Of course, the liberal media is not going to mention that aspect. Of course not.
No, because that would cloud and muddy the narrative, which is that there's no justice, and that's a curious concept that the so-called Ferguson protesters keep talking about. We want justice, no peace. In fact, that's what the Ferguson simps who were blocking the freeway in San Diego were saying. That's the common theme: no justice, no peace. Well, they have a unique definition of justice, it seems to me, because I don't understand how justice is advanced by burning down black businesses. In fact, I put another post up just this morning at politicalpistachio.com about how the Ferguson protesters, one of the places they looted was a 93% black elementary school. So apparently black elementary school kids also murdered Michael Brown, I guess. And there was another story, it came right up in my neck of the woods. There was a Christmas tree dedication ceremony in downtown Seattle, Washington. And some Ferguson sympathizers crashed, just burst their way into the ceremony, totally disrupted it, were shouting and terrorized. I mean, they had like 7 to 10-year-old school children that were part of this Christmas tree dedication ceremony in downtown Seattle. And these Ferguson sympathizers were shouting in their faces and just terrorized them. They were all crying. And if there's any comedic aspect to this particular part of the story, it's that this Seattle mayor, who, of course, is a big Democrat, and he had up to that point, he had been all in solidarity with the protesters and so on and so forth. He was running around the whole place profusely trying to apologize to everybody, and I mean, at least he had some dim mental political acumen to realize the public relations disaster that this was. Sure. I mean, and this just rolls out of control. I mean,
well, the thing is, too, is these protesters are going to be broken into 3 different groups. You've got those who are, it's a pure bitter rage. You've got the opportunists, and you've got the agitators. And the bitter rage, I mean, I've seen people, when I was younger, I've been in this state of mind. When you allow yourself to come to the point where you are so enraged that you can't see straight, the truth does not matter. It could be told to you, shown to you, explained to you, and if you are convinced, kind of like what we're talking about, those Democrats and so forth that are convinced of things being a certain way. You and I were talking about certain people when we talked to, and abortionists and homeschooling and all that. When they're convinced, just like that teacher from the movie Interstellar we were talking about, so convinced that this is the way it is, all the truth in the world will not change your mind because of your rage. And that's where that first group is at. The second group are the opportunists. They're the ones those are the looters. Those are the ones where, hey, what a great opportunity to be, A, B, or C. And, to get free stuff, to be violent or whatever their love of their life is. And the third group is really the more dangerous of the 3, and those are the agitators. These are the people who see this as an opportunity for their political agenda, be it the Muslims, be it the hard leftists, be it all of these groups are represented in these protests. But I think after you go through all that and you read all that, then you go where the most criticism is really being sent. You see, here's how you find out if someone's nailing it and if they're right. And that's the people who get criticized the most. And so I would like to read real quick the statement regarding this of one of my heroes. I saw him in concert. Matter of fact, you got to wear earplugs and still.
Oh
loud.
yeah.
Matter of fact, in the post I put a picture of his guitar pick that he threw out in the crowd that I caught. And that's Ted Nugent. And I think Ted Nugent nails it. Here's the lessons from Ferguson, America. Don't let your kids grow up to be thugs who think they can steal, assault, and attack cops as a way of life and a badge of black dishonor. Don't preach your racist bull, no justice, no peace, as blabbered by Obama's racist czar, Al Not-So-Sharpton, and their black Klansmen. When a cop tells you to get out of the middle of the street, obey him and don't attack him as brainwashed by the gangsta a-holes you hang with and look up to. It's that simple, unless you have no brains, no soul, no sense of decency whatsoever. And don't claim that black lives matter. When you ignore the millions you abort and slaughter each and every day by other blacks. Those of us with a soul do indeed believe black lives matter, as all lives matter. So quit killing each other, you effing idiots. Drive safely. And then after that came out, I saw a response in one of I can't remember which one it was. I want to say it was MSNBC site that basically said Ted Nugent classifies all blacks into one giant general stereotype. What?
Well, they had to reach for something.
He nailed it. He got it right, and that goes back to the video I put on. And that goes back to a video I put on back in August or September, the Angry Black Man video on the website. And I don't know how many people saw it, but he's basically a local St. Louis guy, and he's like, "You want change? You got to change within." He says, "If the man is holding you down, but what happened with me? I'm a black man. I drive a BMW." But you know, and he's telling them, and I even wrote a piece that kind of says the same thing. You can sit here and you can complain and you can blame and you can blame and you can blame, but until you take care of it within you and you make decisions, kind of goes back to that incentive thing. Change is not going to happen as long as you are happy with mediocrity given to you and paid to you by government, rather than going above mediocrity because you decided to make a difference yourself from within. Until that happens, you deserve nobody deserves it, but you deserve what you get.
Well, and one thing that needs to be kept in mind about all this, and that's Officer Darren Wilson himself. Now, it is a good thing. It is a very good thing, and kudos to the jury for a courageous decision to stand up to the mob and actually judge based upon the facts and evidence, and based on that, they did not indict him. He didn't murder Michael Brown. Michael Brown was trying to murder Officer Wilson. And he's a young
kid, and he's a young guy, 28-year-old.
He's 28 years old. But consider this, folks. Now, he's not going to be prosecuted, and you got the federal civil rights investigation, and who knows where that'll go. But let's just say that doesn't go anywhere, and he's not prosecuted. He's a free man. Only technically is he a free man, because he is going. He is going to have to look over his shoulder, he and his entire family, for the rest of their lives. In fact, he's already announced his resignation from the Ferguson police force. And his attorney has already said he'll never work in law enforcement again. How could he? If he did so, he would be endangering his fellow police officers wherever he worked. And where can he work, period? I mean, his career is destroyed.
And I'm going to guess he has wanted to be a police officer his entire life. This is something that he aspired to. This is something that he is proud of being, and it was ripped from him.
And his life is in danger the rest of his life. His family is endangered for the rest of their lives. I don't know what he can do for a living. I don't know how he can show his face. I mean,
maybe he'll move into Tom Furman's seat on Fox News.
or maybe he could get a job working for MSNBC where nobody would ever see him again, or CNN. That might work.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I mean,
we're almost out of time, so let's get to the next story. Immigration's political impact. Because with what we got going on today, I don't think we're going to be able to give this a whole lot of time on KCAA. Immigration, hypocrisy, Obama's hypocrisy. Did you see the video I put on the website of him in 2008 during his campaign about how one of the biggest problems we have is Bush going around the Congress doing what he wants? Without, and that won't happen in my administration. You talk about hypocrisy. But what's funny is he's getting booed and heckled over this in front of his own crowds even.
Oh yeah! In fact, did you see that? He was speaking to a pro-immigration rally, and there were immigration extremists there who were heckling him because what he did a week ago Thursday wasn't good enough, wasn't fast enough, and he actually let slip the phrase, "Well, I changed the law." And he's been trying to say for the past week that he hadn't changed the law, that he was working in accordance with the law. Now he comes out, it's like I've always said, whenever this guy goes off prompter, he says what he really thinks. He does not have the mental discipline to control his rhetoric when he's not reading off a teleprompter. And he actually said, "Well, I changed the law. What more do you want?" But I mean,
I was going to say, I was just advised that Jerome Corsi is pushed to 5:30 Eastern time, 2:30 our time. So
okay,
but yeah, we got. I'm working as we talk. So we've got the top of the hour guest on Obamacare, the bottom of the hour guest Jerome Corsi, best known for his book Obama Nation, when Obama was first rising into prominence. But anyway, getting back to this story here. Federal judge even says illegals can sue for being detained. I mean, that's how insane this has gotten.
Oh, yeah. Does anybody ever wondered or asked the question, how does an illegal alien and we're talking about illegals who came here, were caught, were deported, and then came back again, how do they have standing to sue in a U.S. court for any reason, period? I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that one. And then, of course, the $2 trillion is the estimated price tag for Obama's amnesty over the next 50 years, and that doesn't count the additional waves that it'll incentivize. Because remember, the other purpose of this amnesty is to create more illegal immigration, more and more and more. So
now the number one story is Thanksgiving, but before you start playing your goodbye, our homes wireless, cooking fireless, cars keyless, food fatless, tires tireless, tootless, rest
If it weren't for the Constitution, nothing would get done. Constitution Speaker Radio with Douglas B. Gibbs on KCAA 1050 AM.
In overtime, the 16th-ranked Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets beat the 9th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs on this play.
from the right hash. Third down, first possession of overtime. Thomas hands to Lasky. Up the middle. Did he get in? Yes! Third touchdown for Zach Lasky. And the Jackets strike first in overtime.
IMG with the call. They finished that game 30-24 as DJ White comes up with his fourth interception on the season, and this one couldn't be bigger in overtime.
Hudson Mason has thrown for 194 yards. This time, passes, and it is intercepted! Picked off! Picked off! It is DJ White who intercepted it, and the Jackets have come into Athens and stunned Georgia.
30-24, IMG with that call. The last time Georgia Tech won in Georgia was 2008, when number 6 Ohio State stays undefeated at home, beating Michigan 42-28. Buckeyes quarterback J.T. Barrett out with a leg injury. Number 21 Clemson over South Carolina 35-17. Well, 22 Louisville, they come back to beat Kentucky 44-40. In the Pac-12, number 25 Utah, they beat Colorado 38-34. In action right now from the top 25 in the second quarter, third-ranked Florida State beating Florida 14-9 with 4:15 remaining before they head to the half. Elsewhere, 19th-ranked Ole Miss beating 4th-ranked Mississippi State 7-3 with 4:56 remaining in the first half of that ball game. 7:58 remaining in the second quarter. Number 7 Baylor beating Texas Tech 21-10. Elsewhere, number 10 Michigan State beating Penn State 13-3, while 12th-ranked Kansas State is beating Kansas 17-0. I'm Joe Grande, NBC Sports Radio and the NBC Sports Radio mobile app.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Rod Tanner. For this afternoon, we'll have sunny skies and a high of 74 as we continue the holiday weekend. There's a chance of drizzle overnight. Get out in mostly cloudy, a low of 51. There's a chance of a shower Sunday. We'll have a mostly cloudy day with a high of 66. Again, there's a chance of a shower Sunday night. Get out in mostly cloudy, a low of 51. Then Monday will kick off the month of December with a partly sunny day, our high near 70. Again, for today, we'll have sunny skies and a high of 74. There's a chance of drizzle overnight with a low of 51. That's your weather forecast for this hour from the station that leaves no listener behind. NBC News Radio, AM 1050, KCAA.
Thank you, Inland Empire, for listening to KCAA Radio.
From the KCAA Community Calendar, I'm Mark Westwood. Everyone's talking about the Third Thursdays in San Bernardino. Rediscover the city of San Bernardino Third Thursday Food Truck Fest. Switch up your lunchtime routine. Try the gourmet food trucks every third Thursday from 11:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. at the Court Street parking lot between E and D Streets in downtown San Bernardino. Enjoy delicious, tasty food from the food trucks such as the Slam and Sliders food truck, Farmer's Belly, the Bacon Mania truck, Piaggio on Wheels, or the Greasy Wiener. All kinds of mouth-watering delights, hot off the truck, and plenty to eat. Put an end to dull, boring fast food and truck on over to City Hall in San Bernardino for the Third Thursday Food Truck Fest in downtown San Bernardino. For more info, check out Rediscover San Bernardino's Facebook page at facebook.com/SB Third Thursdays. That's SBTHIRD Thursdays. That's a look at the KCAA Community Calendar. I'm Mark Westwood.
What have I learned so far? I've learned that there's no one path that is right for everyone. I've learned that without my high school diploma, I could only help so much. My options were limited. I found a free personalized learning program with flexible scheduling, so I could keep my job while earning my high school diploma. I found new career training opportunities that will jumpstart my future. What have I learned so far? I've learned that I can change my life.
At Learn for Life, we believe all students should have access to a free, quality education. Learn for Life connects students and parents with resources in their area where they experience a personalized learning approach to education. With free support services such as tutoring and career readiness programs, Learn for Life will provide options to help students and parents succeed. Check us out on the web at www.learn4life.org or call us at 1-877-360-LEARN, 877-360-5327. Experience Learn for Life.
Real talk for real people. Right here in the Inland Empire. We are 1050 AM KCAA.
Welcome one, welcome all. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KCAA AM 1050. FM 106.3, online, kcaaradio.com. You can listen by calling in, a call to listen number 832-999-1050, And then if you want to call and join the conversation, 888-909-1050. So let's see. So call to listen, 832-999-1050. Call to participate, 888-909-1050. Somehow I remember all those numbers, Joe, and I'm not sure how. I think it's just because I love the station so much. I'm glad we're here. But, man, we need more time. We're going to increase this show down the road. But anyway, Alex always beside me. His latest poem is on politicalpistachio.com as of this morning. It was a good piece of work, my friend.
Well, thank you. I put my heart and soul into it as usual.
Yeah, and see, this email thing works real nice. I cut, I paste, I put it on there. It was real nice. Yeah, we're getting a knack of this stuff. Now, real quick before we get rolling with the show, I got some announcements to make. At the bottom of the hour in today's show, Jerome Corsi is going to be on the program. And if you've heard of the book Abomination or The Late Great USA, those are his books. He's got a new one out about Kennedy's assassination. I actually got into a heated argument with Bill O'Reilly over that, so I'm going to ask him about that. Next Saturday, right here on this program here on KCAA, our first guest will be John Wolstetter. He'll be on for about 10 minutes, national security guy. But then at quarter after the hour, Judge Andrew Napolitano will be on this program next Saturday. He's our quarter after the hour guest, and pretty jazzed about getting him on. He has a new book, Suicide Pact, so he's coming on to talk about the book. But pretty jazzed about having the opportunity to have him on the program. This is all about the Constitution here on this program, so to have someone like the judge who gets it when it comes to the original intent of the United States Constitution, I'm pretty happy about that. All right, are you ready to get rolling with our today's guest?
Oh, yeah, we're ready over here.
You're ready over here? Oh, gosh. Alex is one of those moods. He's always in one of those moods. I love you. Oh, something else, Alex. Alex and listening audience, especially those of you here in Southern California. Next Saturday is our busy day. Next Saturday morning, December 6th, next Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. in the city of Murrieta, there's going to be the Festival of Trees. The Constitution Association, the organization that I'm president of, we are sponsoring a tree. We are decorating that tree with patriotic ornaments. All of you listeners and readers of politicalpistachio.com, I want you guys out there in Murrieta at Town Square Park off of Calmia at Jefferson at 10 a.m. to help us decorate that tree. We're going to put patriotic ornaments, red, white, and blue bulbs, and then that tree will be on display all day. And then on the 10th, it will be donated to a local family who is unable to afford a tree. So I'm pretty jazzed about that. Then after that, then at noontime, the usual American Daily Review radio show that I co-host. And then at 2 o'clock, this program with Judge Napolitano on it as one of our guests, and John Wolstetter as the other. And then at 5 o'clock in Menifee, the Constitution Association weekly meeting, and our guest speaker, and there to inform us, entertain us, and be a part of the meeting is Eric Golub, who is, Mr. Tiger Express himself, and he's a conservative comedian, so he's going to be there to throw a few funnies for us as well, and along with a nice Christmas Constitution message by yours truly. So next Saturday, the 6th, is a busy day. Are you ready for it, Alex? You going to have the energy to get through the whole day?
I was born ready. I'm just a little old, that's all.
What? Who is that you're trying to imitate again?
Well, they call me Gabby Hayes.
Yeah, Gabby Hayes. And everybody younger than you are like, yeah, okay, whatever.
That's right. Everybody's younger than me.
Yeah, everybody is. Yeah, but you had a good time, with Thomas Jefferson and Madison. You got to know those guys quite well. No, he hasn't been around that long. But anyway, okay, today's first guest is, and I'm going to ask him for the right pronunciation because I'm going to probably, well, I don't know. Sometimes I get pretty close, but I'm probably going to butcher this. Dr. Paul Ruggieri, and he has a book out which we'll discuss that addresses Obamacare. And so, Dr. Ruggieri, did I say it correctly?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh,
perfect.
Holy cow. I didn't pull out my butcher knife or anything. Your book is actually quite interesting because the timing is absolutely perfect since Gruber came out with his remarks regarding the lack of transparency of Obamacare. But your book is The Cost of Cutting. A Surgeon Reveals the Truth Behind a Multi-Billion-Dollar Industry. So, and it asks questions like what should we know about Obamacare? How are Americans being played by the healthcare system? What questions should patients be asking? And I've always believed that, and I'm a free market guy, so this probably come of no surprise, that the closer the patient-provider relationship, the better. Not only when it comes to costs, but in quality and so forth. So we already have a difficulty with a third party paying, but I almost feel like by having government replace or join the party with that third party payment for health care, that actually doesn't help us. It actually hurts what's already a bad system. Now, that all said, I want to welcome you to Constitution Radio. I appreciate you coming on. Tell us, what should we know about Obamacare as it pertains to health care and what your book has to say about it?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time. It's interesting. The timing is very interesting with this in regards to Gruber's mea culpas. But there really is no point in our history right now that your health care is being directly influenced by financial, by business decisions made by the federal government, the Affordable Care Act. Your health care is being effective at every aspect, on every level, particularly in regards to surgery. The Affordable Care Act is pretty much created a political environment that has caused many hospital systems to buy up physician practices to get bigger. And I'm an independent practitioner. And as an independent practitioner, it's very hard for me to compete with that.
And so it creates an environment where it makes for lack of a better word, the little guy to be able to compete. And competition is really isn't the competition part of the key to keeping costs down and keeping quality up?
I believe it is competition and transparency. Like there was no transparency in the formation of the Affordable Care Act. There really has been transparency in hospitals and what they charge for operations. Patients have no idea what their operations cost and how they're influenced by the financial and business decisions made by these hospitals. There really is no transparency in how you get referred to a specialist. Many primary care doctors are employed by hospital systems, and they have to refer their patients to their specialist. Not so much the specialist who may have a better experience in the community, but to their specialist, because they're all financially linked.
Well, now, so we have Mr. Gruber, who was one of the architects and one of the consultants of Obamacare, and he's saying that it not only lacks transparency, but it does so by design, and that they were relying on the stupidity of the American people not to notice, not to care, and to fall for whatever they tell them. Was that a surprise to you?
I'm not surprised. It's a surprise to me that they found somebody to admit it on video.
Good point. Good point.
And he keeps going on and on. I mean, it's not just one video. He just kept going on and on about this. And it doesn't surprise me in some ways, but the Affordable Care Act, that's one problem. The other big problem, I think, is going to create a two-tier system in this country. There are going to be people who can afford private insurance and get pretty good care. And then they're going to get people who go through the exchanges, the Affordable Care Act, and may not know what kind of care they're going to get.
A chiropractor in Northern California who listens to the show regularly just put a statement, a comment. By the way, folks, if you want to comment to me live during the show, Facebook.com/Douglas V. Gibbs. And she says, the charges aren't transparent because they're different fee. There are different fee schedules depending on who's paying. And then she goes on to say they're hiding behind the contractual agreements between payers, managed care companies, etc., for reasons to not disclose the information up front.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, they're doing it purposely. It's been that way for decades.
Okay.
The other part of that equation is they're not linked to the hospital's outcomes. Hospitals are going to get paid regardless, and their poorer quality hospitals get paid the same.
And so we already have a bad system, basically, and the narrative has been that if you don't support Obamacare, you love the insurance companies. And I've always told people I don't love the insurance companies. I mean, it's better than the government being in control and paying, but it's still not a great system. I mean, we go back to when we were much younger, and when our parents were younger, and the doctors made house calls and did things like that because it was a patient provider relationship. They were trying to give better quality and do things to win their business of the patients because the patients were paying for it, and that kept the cost down. And so now we've got this, the insurance company's pretty much controlling everything. So it's already a bad situation. So if the third party paying is the problem, how is it bringing the government in to become that third payer better? It's taking a problem and adding something to it that makes it even worse than it was originally. So now the question is, if that's the case, if that's the truth, how do we resolve this, especially with Obamacare? Basically now the law of the land. How do we resolve this or return this in a direction that's manageable for the public?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I agree with what you said. I'm not a big fan of insurance companies either. And adding the federal government to that pot, it just makes things worse. No question about it. I don't have an answer for this. There's not one right answer for this. In some ways, the Affordable Care Act is helpful. It does allow people to get insurance.
Right.
And that's good. That's a good thing. What's interesting is the insurance companies this last quarter have record profits, and much of that is from the increase in Medicaid patients spurred on by the Affordable Care Act. So they were in favor of this from the beginning because they knew on the other side they would be making some money because more people would have some kind of insurance versus nothing. So they would make some money in that regard.
And then you've got a segment out there that either cannot pay or somehow out the system. And so you got these, as the commenter up north has put, hospitals are almost forced to charge more wherever they can to make up for the lower paying payers, which makes it a dysfunctional system. And if you want to throw in, the illegal aliens who's not going to pay their bills, which is forcing hospitals to go under, and so on and so forth, what happens is the people that can afford to pay are having to pay more. People who don't pay are bankrupting the system. And health costs are going up because, the hospitals and the doctors, know they're going to get paid from, the insurance companies, plus all the malpractice, the danger of malpractice and all that jazz. They got to, order everything to prove that they covered all bases. So, and the system is so dysfunctional, as she put, that it almost seems like there is no way out. Now, I'm a firm believer there is always a way out, but I do think the free market is the key here. It's just a question of how do we get it back to that. That's that's our question, and like you said, it can't be answered. How do you get there? We're going to have to figure it out. But government control or government as a third paying party is definitely not the answer.
Well, it seems to me that I hate to violate Yogi Berra's statement that you should never make predictions, especially about the future. But we've got some Supreme Court cases hanging fire right now that could change the entire situation if they declare that for instance, the state exchanges, if you don't have an state exchange, you don't get the program.
Well,
that's right.
And
right.
Well, that's why did they do that? Do you think, sir? Why did they even put themselves in that position?
Well, listen, there are some big challenges coming up in May and June. I believe the Supreme Court is going to look at the very core of the Affordable Care Act, whether it's constitutional or not.
Right.
And that really could change the landscape. And
well, it's like in an attempt to cover all their bases, they created their own problems. It's like they like the old saying goes, cut off their nose despite the nose despite their face or something. I can't remember how does that go?
To cut off your nose despite your face.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and in a sense, that's kind of what they did, isn't it?
It is. I'm a big believer in karma. If this law was born out of deception, eventually it's going to come around. He will come around.
Well, we got to go to break, so I want to talk more about the book itself when we come back. So we're going to go to break, and folks, I want you to pay attention to these advertisers for two reasons. Number one, they're the ones that bring the show to you. Number two, both All-Star Collision and Constitution Quest board game have special deals. Now, the deal for All-Star is in the ad, but for Constitution Quest game, listen to the ad, but know this. When you go to constitutionquest.com, you, until the end of the year, can get a 20% discount if you enter my name, D-O-U-G, in the discount box. They've got this deal going. There's already folks, they've told me, there are already folks buying the game using my name. 20% discount. Great Christmas gift. We'll be right back.
KCAA.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Tired of the lies? Come here for the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs on KCAA 1050 AM.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
If the truth hurts, then AM 1050 KCAA can be a real pain.
Hey, welcome back. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs right here on KCAA AM 1050. FM 106.3, online, kcaaradio.com. The show also rebroadcast on KCXL in Kansas City, Missouri, and WHTH of Youngstown, Ohio. We are actually, I am actually in communications with 3 other stations to see if we can expand the show further. We've got Liberty Tree Media coming up. They're going to start podcasting the show regularly and simulcasting it on their network. So a lot of growth right on the horizon for us, Alex. And Alex he's always grinning at the great adventure, right?
I'm terribly thrilled, I'll tell you that, son.
Oh, brother. All right, well, let's get back to this book because, and by the way, every week we have a book of the week, a Constitution Radio book of the week. And from what I've learned about, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but from talking to the author on this show and everything I've read about it and gone into, it comes across as definitely something that you want to read because you are getting the nitty gritty from inside, from a surgeon. And Dr. Paul Ruggieri is coming across as definitely knowledgeable and understanding what's going on here. So I'm going to recommend, as the book of the week, The Cost of Cutting. A surgeon reveals the truth behind a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if you go to politicalpistachio.com right now in the post that promotes today's show, there's a link to purchase that book on the site. Dr. Ruggieri, the book itself now, where do we really, in your best elevator pitch, what does the book really explain to us?
Well, I think it explains the lack of transparency that's really affecting patient care. Patients' choice is slowly diminishing when it comes to surgery, because many times their referral to a surgeon is influenced by factors outside their control, and they really don't have any idea what experience of the surgeon they're being referred to many times, because it's within the hospital system. I wrote it out of frustration because of the politics that's going on in my community. It's emblematic of that's nationwide, again, spurred on by the Affordable Care Act. It's just hurting independent practitioners. And I think patients really need to know this. They're the only ones who can be advocates for their own care and speak up and ask the right questions, get the right answer.
And if anybody wants to read what do you write outside the book? Do you have a website or?
Yeah, I do. It's www.paulruggieri.com.
And go ahead and spell it out for everybody, if you don't mind.
www.kulruggieri.com.
And in less than 5 minutes, Jerome Corsi is going to be on the program. We're going to talk about his book. In the meantime, we are going to go to the Constitution Quest question of the week. But Dr. Ruggieri, I wanted to just let you know, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Your knowledge is definitely almost insurmountable, or at least when it comes to the two of us behind this table. But we appreciate the work you're doing. We appreciate you trying to bring the truth to the surface, because it's a constant fight. It's to really get things straightened out. And like you said, right now the way things are, what word am I thinking of, Alex? The resolution of what we're trying to get to here is we don't know where it's at, but it may be something that'll fall into our lap. It might be a court case. I don't know. But one thing is for sure, Obamacare is not good for America. And, any final thoughts before we say goodbye, sir?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on my show. And again, patients need to speak up, because they're the only ones that can make change in this country.
Oh, absolutely. Patients need to speak up. Thank you. And Dr. Ruggieri, have a wonderful week. Merry Christmas, and thank you for your time on this program.
You too. Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you.
All right, it is time for the Constitution Quest question of the week. We're preparing for for Jerome Corsi, who will be on the program in less than 5 minutes. Our engineer is going to be dialing him up pretty quick. Meanwhile, Jasmine, do we have you on with us?
Yeah, and just a message to Alex. If you're not going to let go of that Gabby Hayes impression, I'm going to have to do my Stewie Griffin impression for the entire show, and I don't think anybody wants that.
No, we don't want that, don't we? Well, I don't know. No, his Gabby Hayes though is closer to Gabby Hayes than yours is to Stewie. Although your Stewie's pretty good.
Man, thank you for telling me that. That's terrible.
Yeah, okay, that was awful.
Gotta get in character.
Got to get in character. In other words, he has to have a cat on his lap.
Doesn't he wear diapers?
Yeah, Stewie wears diapers.
That might be one of your first steps there.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if he's already to that point in his life. It's just all right.
Working on it.
All right, the Constitution Quest question of the week comes from the Constitution Quest game, constitutionquest.com. If you go to that site to purchase your game right now, you can, and until the end of the year, and you enter Doug, my name, D-O-U-G, in the discount box, you will then be able to purchase a game at a 20% discount. Now, and they have like an $8 discount or something like that for the holiday right now. The 20% is even better than that. So now, here's the question from one of the game cards from the game. Each House of Congress may, A, not force members to attend meetings, B, not punish members for disorderly behavior, or C, expel a member. Joe?
One more time.
All right. Each House of Congress may, A, not force members to attend meetings, B, not punish members for disorderly behavior, or C, expel a member. What may they do?
I'll go with B.
You're going to go with B, not punish members for disorderly behavior. Alex?
You got some negatives in there. I'm kind of confused. Are they all three nots?
No, the first two are nots, the last one is an is.
That's what I thought.
Of course, that all depends on what the definition of is.
Definition of is. I'm just going to throw up my hands and say number 3. I have no idea.
C, expel a member. Jasmius.
C. Both houses can set their own rules, and they can expel members
by
a majority vote.
So in other words, if the two negatives weren't there, really this would have an A, B, C, and D. It would be a 3 or all of the above. Because yes, they can force members to attend meetings. Each House Congress may punish members for disorderly behavior. Rangel was censured. That's an example of that. And C, expel a member, of course, with Rangel, rather than expel him. They shook his hand and treated him as if he did something good when they were censuring him. That was interesting. But, and that all comes from Article 1. United States Constitution. Did you learn something, Alex?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Like not to pay attention to negatives? No.
No, just watch how questions are phrased. Is the special skill here, I think.
Well, this radio program, I mean, we've been here on KCAA for 3 years, over 3 years now. We were on Blog Talk Radio for 5.5, 6 years, something like that. And this next guest, Jerome Corsi, was on the show back in the day of Blog Talk Radio, but hasn't been on since we've been on AM radio. Probably thinks we haven't had him on because, we're on AM, we're so big now. No, I'm kidding. Dr. Jerome Corsi, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you again.
Well, Douglas, good to be back with you, too. Thank you very much.
And now, we've got a new book out, and that's one of the main reasons we have you on. And tell us about the book. This is it's about the assassination of Kennedy, right?
Yes, I wrote a hardcover last year, which was the 50th anniversary of the assassination. It was Who Really Killed Kennedy, and that book did extremely well. And so I decided this year to put together an e-book, which is a new venture, it's a new medium, and to publish most current research, because I think we're very close to being able really to prove conclusively that Lee Harvey Oswald was not the lone gun assassin, and hopefully to be able even to change some of the mainstream media, which is still very locked into this, CIA disinformation campaign around Lee Harvey Oswald. And the e-book, I set it up so that it's at CorsiOnJFK.com.
Okay.
It's a website, CorsiOnJFK.com. You buy it once, nominal price, I think like $4.90. And then I'm updating it, and you can download all the updates free. And I'm hoping to ultimately, over the next 2 or 3 years, be able to produce another hardcover book. But the e-book is the way to get there. And I really wanted to dialogue with the readers. I'm trying to, both on Twitter and Facebook, interact with readers, and on LinkedIn. So it's, a very active dialogue. The research is really exciting. I mean, I even put free on the CorsiOnJFK.com a video in which the dictaphone which recorded the sounds of the shooting in Dealey Plaza during the assassination has been validated and worked on, and I've synced it with the Zapruder film. So you can see there are two distinct clusters of shots.
Right. Now I got a question, because you mentioned earlier we have new information. Is that as a result largely because of technology, or is it a large part of the declassification of some of this paperwork?
It's both of those. I mean, the technology, the science is much better, and the ability to, for instance, examine the dictabelt, to examine the Zapruder film, many of the really technical aspects of the assassination are understood much better today than they were ever before. There are newly declassified papers, and more are coming out in 2017. Hopefully the last big drop of declassified. We're going to push that everything is declassified. I'll be writing about that in WND.com. And also just better research all around. I mean, the research community has now had 50 years of debating the issues, and we've gone through a couple of generations of, research thinking, so that today we're, much better able to prove that Lee Harvey Oswald was, set up. I mean, just little details that, probably no one knows. I mean, it's been proven that the Mannlicher's Carcano rifle that supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald ordered by mail order was a different model than the one that was found at the assassination. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine that he really ordered the rifle and got it delivered. The delivery slip does not have any receipt on it that it was ever cashed. There was never any proof that Oswald went to that deposit, that drop-off window in the post office and picked up the weapon. I mean, it's much clearer that the Dallas police and the FBI worked to set up Lee Harvey Oswald, and the evidence is very clear that Lee Harvey Oswald had an extensive CIA file and was being paid by the FBI as an FBI informant at the time of the assassination.
That's fascinating. Folks, you're listening to Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs on KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.3, rebroadcast on KCXL and WHTH. And the guest is Jerome Corsi. Many of you will probably remember his books, Abomination or The Late Great USA. Matter of fact, Abomination, I think, really put you into some real prominence at that time. But now, your discoveries regarding the assassination of Kennedy that you've put into your books, you doesn't necessarily jive with other people's opinions. And I was reading recently that you and Bill O'Reilly, I guess, had a little bit of a discussion about this. How was it that you and him differed, and why was it such a, for lack of a better word, debate-like discussion?
Well, Bill O'Reilly still believes, and his book is on, that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gun assassin. And it's just obvious that whoever ghost wrote Bill O'Reilly's book and Bill O'Reilly himself have not kept up with the current research. I mean, the work that's been done now on the internal workings of the Warren Commission prove that the Warren Commission suppressed evidence, that there was a predetermined conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald, all the evidence was made to fit into this conclusion. The evidence is very compelling. I mean, Frazier, the guy who drove Oswald to the Texas School Book Depository that day, he was the one who said Oswald brought the package that contained so-called curtain rods. Of course, that was a major part in convincing everyone that Oswald brought the gun to work that day to kill Kennedy. Well, first of all, we now know that Frazier himself owned a gun and was a suspect and was questioned for hours. And finally, after taking an extensive lie detector test going through the third degree, would have agreed to anything. Even today, Frazier says that the package Oswald brought with him was not big enough to hold even a broken-down weapon. And it's likely that the only bag that Lee Harvey Oswald brought with him was his chicken sandwich and his fruit for lunch. Lee Harvey Oswald was on the second floor when the shooting occurred and was seen by multiple witnesses. I mean, it just goes on and on that the evidence is really compelling that Lee Harvey Oswald was not involved as a shooter, but was, like he maintained, a patsy.
Now, who was he a patsy of?
Largely, I think the CIA. I mean, the more work I've done, I think the plot was a government-orchestrated coup. Allen Dulles was very responsible for organizing it.
Well, what was their motivation?
Well, hang on a second, just a second.
Well, let me answer the question. The motivation was very, Jack Kennedy was not going to fight the CIA's lying wars. He refused to go into Laos. He was, in fact, pulling out of Vietnam.
Yeah, well, Jasmius and I had a discussion about.
And he also was printing Treasury notes, bypassing the Federal Reserve.
Right.
I mean, there are many different contingents that military-industrial complex not being the only one that wanted Jack Kennedy gone.
Well, Jasmius and I have had some discussions about Kennedy ourselves, and there's a few things about what Kennedy was doing to buck the system. I can't remember all of the details. Jasmius, do you remember our conversations, what we were talking about on that?
No, actually, it must have been a long time ago because I don't recall any of the specifics.
Yeah, well, what it was is Kennedy was looking into certain things. He was wanting to put certain restrictions on CIA, certain groups, so on. So and
maybe even break the CIA up altogether.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. Now, that said, what you're basically contending is that there is a conspiracy that goes deeper than anybody had before realized. However, now, because of technology and because of documents that are now made available and been declassified, we're able to get to this information which is shedding more light. Now, is and O'Reilly's probably one example, but have you been receiving this, well, wait a second, this is, silly conspiracy theory stuff. Have you been receiving that kind of response?
Well, I mean, yeah, we can even now prove that the whole idea of calling anyone who disagreed with the Warren Commission a conspiracy theory was disinformation that the CIA adopted from the KGB. The CIA had been operating Operation Paperclip and been paying journalists, even back into the 50s, to print what the CIA wanted. That was going on throughout the Kennedy assassination era, and I suspect it's even still going on today. The CIA continues to influence journalists to get its story out.
I'm in a position here where I'm all this trivia about receipts and all this stuff. I'm looking at motive, and the motive I see is Carlos Marcello, Sam Momo Giancana. Marcello, the Bobby Kennedy had sent him into the jungles of Ecuador or something like that. Kennedy had turned on his own people. He came from a bootlegging family. His father got Giancana and Marcello to swing the election that way, and he betrayed them. Now, the CIA, their ability to do assassinations was so poor that they had to contract with the mafia to try to hit Castro. So, I gotta see some evidence here.
Well, I would recommend you do some reading. It doesn't sound like you've been doing much for a long time. As I pointed out in my book on JFK's assassination, there's a story you probably don't know that involves the Elkins family. I spent a lot of time with the Elkins family. They were the organized crime family in the West that were responsible for the McClellan Committee hearings. They had taped all the mobsters moving into the Teamsters Union out in Seattle. And the real alliance was between the Kennedy family and the Elkins, the Western mob, and they didn't turn on the entire mob. They turned on the Eastern mob. Declassified papers now, and I can show them to you in the archives, I've copied them, now have even the CIA history of the Bay of Pigs, and it was clear that through Johnny Rosselli, the CIA had been working hand-in-hand with the mob going back to about 1957.
Right.
That had not quit. Probably, I'm not even sure today it's quit, but again, the CIA and rogue elements within the CIA in particular were even running guns to supply Castro, and the guns were being run largely out of Dallas, and Jack Ruby was in the middle of that operation.
Yeah, the unfortunate reality right now is I ran out of time like 2 minutes ago.
And let me just make one final point. Why
Okay.
all this is important is I think that the day the country changed, CIA actually, we wonder why we have lying presidents today where we can't even get documentation on who they really are, look like CIA fabrications. I think once we fully expose what happened at the Kennedy assassination, it will be clear how our government has evolved in the direction it has. Massive NSA, massive CIA, largely unaccounted for. And we just accept this as normal and natural when, in fact, it has some very serious constitutional implications.
And the way to learn more about this, if you are curious, Corsi on JFK.com, Corsi on JFK.com. Jerome Corsi, it's been a pleasure speaking with you again. We definitely want to have you back again in the future. Let everybody know, once again, the name of the book and how they can find it.
Yeah, it's my hardcover is Who Really Killed Kennedy. It's on Amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles. This new ebook, a nominal price, one subscription, all the editions are then downloaded free, is CorsiOnJFK.com. And I'm a senior staff reporter with WND.com, and I do editorials for TeaParty.org. And it's been a pleasure to be with you.
Well, thank you, and have a great Christmas coming up.
Thank you, likewise.
All right, folks, we got to go to break like 5 minutes ago. So we're going to go to break, and then we come back. We got the big stories of the week with Jasmius and Alex, and yours truly, Douglas V. Gibbs. We'll be right back.
KCAA. Constitution or bust. Taking back America one listener at a time. Constitution Speaker Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs on KCAA 1050 AM.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
All aboard the Inland Empire Express. 10:50 a.m., leaving no listeners behind. KCAA.
Welcome back. Constitution Radio, Douglas V. Gibbs. And Alex really thought that Jerome Corsi was number one, and he signaled so, just with the wrong digits. I tell you what, Jerome Corsi is a fascinating individual. I like him a lot because what he does, this is what I was explaining to Alex off the air just now, is his book Abomination. The reason why it was so popular is what Jerome Corsi does is he digs into conspiracies and information that the average person can't find or doesn't dig into. And he was finding things out about Barack Obama and his connections and the questions regarding his childhood, so on and so forth, in ways that nobody else was either achieving or willing to do. And that's where Jerome Corsi is a very fascinating individual. Now, I have no opinion on the JFK assassination. It's fascinating to hear what Jerome Corsi has to say. It's fascinating to hear what Bill O'Reilly has to say. But they do come from two totally different camps or lines of thinking. And Alex, it seems like you're probably more in line with Bill O'Reilly's, without going deep into this because we got to do the stories.
Yeah, Bill O'Reilly's not my favorite guy, but there are points of agreement, and this is one of them. John F. Kennedy was the most anti-communist president we ever had. He's the one that put us in Vietnam. Gore Vidal said there was no chance of him. He was a relative. He said there was no chance of him changing his mind. I think that the left has made a business, an occupation out of this whole Kennedy assassination thing. They've made millions and billions of dollars on it. It just makes me sick.
All right, well,
other than that, I have no opinion.
Yeah, go.
Go ahead, Jeff. Everybody knows Magneto killed Kennedy. I mean, remember the bent bullet theory, right?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, all I know is every discussion that Jasmius and I have on the telephone always winds up we always wind up inserting one, two, or all three of either X-Men, Star Wars, or Star Trek. Okay, now that all said, it's not a bad thing, but to some people,
it's a very good thing, actually.
Yeah. Okay. We went through the big stories of the week. It turned out to be 11, and it was originally over 20 of them, but I just had to reduce the list down to what I felt was most important and most influential when it came to the United States Constitution. I'm going to go through all of them. Some of them we will make some quick comments about. Story number 11, Common Core's effect on homeschooling. We've got Common Core opposition creating more homeschooling. Missouri sheriff pepper sprays and tasers parents of homeschoolers. Judge decided the sheriff's department was wrong. Now, this brings to mind, and I mentioned this on American Daily Review earlier, which is where you can get all the details about these stories, blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, where Jasmius and I spent 2 hours on these 11 stories. So if you want to hear our full commentary, that's where to go. But this brings to mind the German couple who was a homeschooling family, came to America to escape, the problems they were having in Germany over, based on laws disallowing homeschooling that was put into place when? During the Third Reich. It says a lot, doesn't it, Jasmius?
I'm amazed that law didn't get thrown out. I would have thought the entire German legal code would have been completely redrawn up after.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We just had a family show up here in America escaping the German, I think it was the German government, which was saying they couldn't homeschool their kid. We almost deported them.
Yeah, that's the family I'm talking about.
Oh,
yeah.
you're talking about that.
That's the family. Yeah, oh yeah. Okay, story number 10, abortion doctor returns child to pedophile. What we've got, this is the norm. What happens is you have these pedophiles, they get the child pregnant, they brings the child in for the abortion. The parents are not told. The paperwork somehow accidentally doesn't get filed, and then they return that child, that 12-year-old in this case, back to the pedophile. And the abortion clinics, what do you call it? Birth control.
Abortion mills.
Yeah, well, they
abortuaries.
Yeah, they basically are working hand in hand with pedophiles and eugenists and everybody else.
I tell you what, we have gotten so far beyond even what the people who, back when Roe v. Wade was handed down, predicted would be the slippery slope. It's surreal.
And of course, in both of these stories, be it home education, homeschooling, and abortion, federal government has no authority to even be involved. This is a local issue, and we need to stop this stuff locally, bit by bit. Story number 9, Mexico moves closer to centralized authoritarian tyranny, what the president of Mexico is considering doing because of all of the corruption in the police departments and them working with the drug cartels and so forth, becoming basically just a part of the drug cartel, is eliminating these local jurisdictions and centralizing all of the law enforcement under federal jurisdiction.
Yeah, because this is Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, who by the media describes as being embattled. He's only been in office for a couple of years, but I mean, there's no question that the local police authorities are corrupt. And we're not talking just slipping a 20 to the cop to get out of a traffic ticket.
Right.
But what could go wrong with centralizing police authority in the central government? Because of course the central government is never corrupt.
Well, and this is how tyranny grabs hold of their tyranny. This is how they work. It's for the good of the people. We're doing it for a good reason. See, there's a crisis, so we've got to do this. Well, that brings back Rahm Emanuel. You need a good crisis to do what you want to do.
And the Mexican people are crying out for it.
Exactly.
So they got what they wanted.
Yeah, and as many Soviet leaders told us, the people will raise the red flag of socialism themselves and be happy to do it. Story number 8, environmental tyranny. EPA's tighter ozone standards. This is without legislation. This is the executive branch making law, completely going against Article 1, Section 1, where all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress. I guess green is the new red.
Yeah, well, it always has been, and we're talking about reducing specifically ground-based ozone, as they call it. And we're talking about reducing it from the current standard of 75 parts per billion to 60 parts per billion at a cost of over $250 billion additional dollars per year to the private sector.
Yeah, good way to kill the private sector, which is their goal. Story number 7, Iran's arrogance. We've got Israel cornered in a war against Iran. Israel preparing to attack Iran because they're it. Because apparently America's not going to do anything. Iran on the nuke talk extension. What is the punchline by Iran?
Oh, they're laughing at us. They're openly ridiculing us. They said that the Americans have very clearly surrendered to Iran's might. And, yeah, we pretty much did. On this past Monday, the latest deadline for nuclear talks with the Iranians was set to expire, so Barack Obama kicked it down the road another 7 months, and the Iranians are laughing at us. And the Israelis aren't laughing because it's coming. They're the only ones that are willing to recognize it, and it's coming at them first.
Well, yeah, they're surrounded by the enemy. They got to do whatever they can to survive because, if anybody outside of the Middle East loses a war, they lost a war. If Israel loses a war, they cease to exist. Story number 6, letting go of Hagel. After Hagel dares to disagree with Obama on ISIS. Hagel is our defense secretary. Now, here's the scenario, Alex. The president says, ISIS, they're just the junior varsity, nothing to worry about, nothing serious. And Hagel says, no, this is some serious stuff. This is the worst we've seen. And suddenly Hagel was forced to resign. Sound typical of this regime?
Obama, at the beginning of his administration, characterized Iran as a little country that didn't threaten much of anybody. You got a guy like Hagel. They reached in the bottom of the barrel to get that guy to be the defense secretary, and even he, with the facts put in front of him, has got to go, hey, it is what it is. And as soon as you say it is what it is in the Obama administration, you're
gone.
toast.
You're gone. That's it.
Barack Obama brought in Chuck Hagel to be a Secretary of Defense to give a Republican face to the rest of his dismantling of the United States military. And, Chuck Hagel was a big anti-war guy. He opposed Bush when he was in the Senate during the Bush years and the Iraq War.
So he brought in this anti-war guy who's saying, let's go to war.
And now but Chuck Hagel came in and actually saw the actual intelligence and what was going on, and he wouldn't shut up, and that's why he was thrown out.
Story number 5: more consequences of Obamacare. Now, when and we talked about this earlier with the guest, so I'm not going to really get into opinions here yet. The Republicans have called Gruber to testify. Remember, Gruber is the one who said that Obamacare was written and designed to deceive, to lie, and because American people stupid. That's what he said. And we've got even Chucky Schumer saying, and maybe passing Obamacare, at least at that time, was a big mistake.
And now that 29 of the 60 Democrat senators who voted for it are out of office.
Yeah, and between Obamacare and amnesty, we're looking at massive layoffs. We're looking at massive job loss. We're looking at a massive economic impact that's not good. Story number 4, anti-government shooter with a political agenda fires upon government buildings in Austin, Texas. That's how he's being characterized, because he was fired upon the Mexican consulate and federal courthouse, the police station. What kind of idiot, first of all, shoots a police station? That's like trying to rob a gun store. But and he wound up being taken out by a cop that was putting the horses away. He's holding the horses with one hand, pulls out the gun with the other hand, puts a bullet into the guy and kills him. But he's being characterized by the media as this anti-government guy with a political agenda. And of course, anti-government is a code word for the left of people like me who wants a limited government.
And it's as soon as you saw what his targets were, you just knew they're going to try to make this incident into the 2014 version of what happened with Gabby Giffords about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and they have a gun control agenda, and then also with one of the targets being the Mexican consulate. Of course, I'm surprised they didn't just drag Murrieta into it and blame us Murrieta residents, because we brought the immigration issue to the forefront, and now there's somebody shooting at the Mexican consulate. Story number 3: Ferguson riots erupt in Ferguson following grand jury decision. The move around. That's right. The grand jury decided we will not indict, and everything went nuts. Ferguson wound up burning, going up in flames in many places.
With the National Guard sitting on their hands, and the
they were told
governor
to.
saying that Obama told the governor not to deploy them.
Well, because they want race war, they want chaos, they want racial division. That's
Absolutely.
what the left, because the left uses that.
I've been saying that for years.
Now,
people thought I was nuts, but I am nuts, but that's not why.
But the thing is, we've got people that are out of their anger willing to destroy their own neighborhood. Story number 2: immigration's political impact. And I mean, Obama's hypocrisy regarding, bypassing Congress, all the way across the board. And finally, story number 1, and listen to it on American Daily Review. And story number 1, Thanksgiving. Giving thanks to God. That's the reason why Thanksgiving was even put into place. And I want you to go to politicalpistachio.com. Go back to Thanksgiving Day posts. I've got about 6 or 7 or 8 posts about Thanksgiving, including President John Hanson's Thanksgiving proclamation. All right, we got to get out of here. Plug yourself.
Even here, even now, we give thanks, especially including Constitution Radio. Also, the Hard Starboard Radio Network podcast airs Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific at blogtalkradio.com/HSR network. I write at politicalpistachio.com, and please subscribe to our YouTube channels.
Alex?
Yeah, we need more time, people. I've got, on those subjects that we just went through, I've got about a half an hour to do on any one of them.
Well, those big stories were brought to you by All-Star Collision, allstarci.com, and I write at politicalpistachio.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, and God bless you. Thank you for spending the time with us. We'll see you next Saturday. Remember, Judge Napolitano on this show next Saturday. I want you here. Drag as many people as you can with you. We'll see you then.
aboard KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 a.m., the station that leaves no listener behind.
This is your NBC Sports Radio update.
NCAA Saturday. I'm Joe Grande. It's right.